Immediately, you will have noticed that I am not Mike. Okay, Mike, as we last heard, probably now is passing through Preston Station, and therefore is still hoping to make part of the event. He's had to dash back from London. Okay, so I am not Mike. I'm Andy Jarvis. I've worked with Mike on some of the issues that have emerged in his great book, The Burning Question. And firstly, thank you for coming to Lancaster Environment Centre, and it's great to see lots and lots of faces that I don't recognise. Too often this room gets filled up with people that would go, all right, same crowd. Whereas, feel free, H, have a seat, it's free. And so clearly the question that Mike has put out, which is how do we wake up to the issues of sustainability, has attracted quite a lot of interest, both partially within inside the university, but also more importantly across our community. Okay, the format that we're going to follow here is that I'm going to try and give a brief warm-up. This has been handed to me a bit of a curveball, so try and give a bit of a brief warm-up. It's going to be very much my view of this wake-up issue, and I'm going to try and be provocative on it. And then I'm going to hand over to Tom Ormerod over here, who was from our psychology department and has now run away, I believe. One day, nearly.
Last day.
Is that right? And then Chris Hart is also going to talk to this same question from a community practitioner activist perspective. Okay. And that's it. And then afterwards, so we're going to be about 3/4 of an hour doing that, maybe a bit more. Feel free to use the time up. We've got plenty of time. And then afterwards, we're going to open it up to a nice heated debate about this rather thorny question of how we change our patterns of behaviour in the knowledge of the sustainability issues that we face. Okay, so from my perspective, obviously I don't know whether it was accident or design on Mike's part for arranging it for today, but clearly today is the day that AR5, the physical basis, has been published. And in there, they make a strong case that anthropogenic climate change is presenting real tangible risks moving forward to us. Okay? Clearly there's controversy around how we perceive those risks, but there's an awful lot of evidence in the AR5 and its predecessor reports that would indicate that we are definitely doing things that are altering the patterns of risks that change some of the systemic things that we depend on: food security, water systems, climate systems, and so on and so forth. So I guess a lot of our discussions will be focusing around or having taken as our assumed starting point that these risks are real, and hence we're in this room because we're discussing the associated issues with grand challenges like climate change. So this is a slide that I've been touting about recently. So these are the global CO2 emissions from 1970 through to 2010. Okay, and it's very interesting, isn't it? Because AR5 has just been published. This is the 5th assessment report. So we've been through 5 assessment reports over the period from the Rio Convention onwards. Okay, from the Earth Summit onwards, and through this period, at around about the mid-1990s, a set of reports were done by the IPCC on setting down what they essentially were forecasting what the emission profiles were going to be, or scenarios were going to be moving forward from 1995 onwards. These are the SRES scenarios, they're called, very famous. And they're a family of about 40 different scenarios describing different futures for us that range from a business as usual, who gives a damn future, through to slowly converging on emissions reduction pathways in a green, equitable future. Okay, so the business as usual family were the A1 family, and the worst of those was the A1F family, and the greener alternatives were the B family. Okay, in particular the B2 family. And then it's very interesting to see, well, what has happened subsequently to which family pathway did we follow? And let's remind ourselves that through this period we had Rio, we've had the Kyoto Protocol and its compliance period, we've had 16 Conference of Parties meetings, okay? And what has happened subsequently? And that's going to carry on annoying me to hell. Excuse me. Someone should kill this thing. It's like a virus. And you can see that what has happened is, despite all this apparent underlying effort to try and negotiate on and reduce the emissions that we perceive to be the basis for the risks associated with climate change, we have in fact quite closely tracked the A1F scenario, the worst case of the IPCC family. Indicating not only has this process been rather toothless at a political level, down at the level of our activities and what we do, we have been singularly rather bad at assimilating the risks if we believe that they're real and changing our behaviour, okay? So this kind of comes back to this question that we have: how can we get off of this and out of this scenario and wake up to some of these grand challenges associated with sustainability? Okay. I just want to reflect a little bit. Just throw a little bit of a provocation out there. So I have been working with a guy called Nick Hewitt here in the Environment Centre, looking at long-term trends, megatrends in global energy use. Okay. And here's the megatrend in the CO2 emissions, and here's the megatrend in global energy use. And you can see that it's across the Industrial Revolution. These things have grown pretty much near exponentially. They've wobbled around a bit, but they've grown pretty much near exponentially over this period. And that recalcitrant inability to get off of the A1F scenario trend that I just showed you previously actually tracks back to this underlying megatrend that crosses the entire Industrial Revolution. Okay. Interesting enough, quickly as an aside, you might be interested in this, that actually the emissions grow slower than the global primary energy use. So this is global primary energy use. It grows about 2.4% per annum. The emissions grow about 1.8% per annum over the last 160 years, which means that we have been systemically decarbonising global energy at around just over 0.5% per year ever since 1850s, as we've done transition from wood to coal, to oil, to gas, to renewables and nuclear. Okay? So it's almost like we have this underlying tendency to decarbonise our energy sources anyway. The problem is, it ain't quick enough to overcome the fact that what's really driving everything is our hunger and our thirst for ever increasing patterns of energy consumption. And so what dominates? This is a picture of Shanghai Harbour. It's probably the node in the whole global industrial system through which most of our resources pass, or the biggest mass of resources pass. 750 million tons of stuff goes through Shanghai Harbour every year. Okay? 750 million tons of stuff. And this is representative, strongly representative of this pattern of ever-increasing consumption of resource that we appear to struggle to wean ourselves off of. Okay? And so if we understand the basis for this, we can start to think about how we might wake up to the issues associated with achieving more sustainable outcomes for the future. I don't want to go into too much of the detail of this, but behind this and behind the pattern of global energy use I'm showing you, I would argue, from my perspective and the analysis that I do, that it's very clear that to me it's clear at least, that the pattern of global energy use and the pattern of individuals' energy use, and hence associated with that its resource use, is associated with optimizing your resource uses over your individualistic working lifetimes. In essence, we've become bloody selfish. And that's what underpins the dynamics the Industrial Revolution, is our single lifetime optimization of resource use. Very simply put, that 2.4% per annum growth in energy use that you see is very easy to relate to the time scale associated with that, which is actually its inverse. That's about 40 years, or From a Douglas Adams perspective, it's actually 42 years, which is a bit weird. So to drive that growth in the world economy and its energy use in the industrial era, we appear as individuals to want to optimize our own patterns of energy use over our working lifetimes and screw other generations. It's about us and about our own specific working lifetimes. And that's a key driver for this 2.4% per annum growth in global energy use. We have to innovate continuously to keep achieving that, and that's why that drives so much of the innovation that you see in modern Western and contemporary societies. Because as you globalize and expand this resource acquisition system, its efficiency drops off. It has to, because you have to move stuff further, okay? And so you then innovate around these issues in order to return and maintain these selfish timescales associated with growth. That's my perspective. Does it have to be this way? Can we find other communities that live at different patterns and have different optimization timescales over which they use resources? And it turns out, so this is a bit of work that I was just starting to do with James Fraser here, it turns out that yes, there are other communities around the world that have completely different optimization objectives. Okay? This is an example of a Liberian community, and they're stood on a great big pile of really enriched, carbon-rich soil. Okay? They know that using that soil, or treating the soil in this way as a repository for all their waste, their carbonaceous waste, increases the fertility of that soil. Okay? They know that. So it's a potential innovation, but they deliberately forego the opportunity of increasing the productivity from this land area by not extending it. They know that it's productive and it grows more food, but they do not extend it. They maintain it at the rather limited, rather small size that it is. There's lots of scope for them to maintain it, because what they do is they pile it up so it's like 2 meters deep. It only has to be about 4 to 8 inches deep, and it would have the same fertility. So they forgo on this opportunity. Why? Well, it appears they forgo on this opportunity. This is our thesis on it, because they're not just interested in their lifetimes, but they're locked into a huge, long generational timescales associated with their ancestors. Okay? And so this has a completely different perspective. What's its growth dynamic? They've had immeasurable growth for 500 years and have pretty much come into equilibrium with their surroundings as a result. Okay? So there are alternatives. What do they mean? A completely different lifestyle, obviously. But underneath that, what really drives them, we would argue, is that implicitly the weight that they put on generations other than themselves, they're not just selfish buggers, is critical for determining whether they expand and consume more resources in the future. That is me done. I throw that out there to try and warm the crowd up. I'm now going to hand over to Tom, who's going to take us in a slightly different direction.